And
like he just wanted us to stand here like fools for a moment.
Yeah. And after one, there's still a hesitation for a little
exactly.
bit. A vegetation.
We just vegetate for a brief moment in time before you're here. All right, guys. Welcome to the show. I'm pretty excited. I'm going to make something today.
Yeah, something pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. So today I'm going to be making a knife sheath for a chef's knife, which is typically called a saya. So it's just a fancy word for a knife sheath. That's what I'm going to be making today. So I've got some stuff already kind of out and going, just because if I didn't prep this, then it would take me like 3 episodes to make it, because I'm going to hand sew everything. Just like Denny and his fishing rod case. But my stitches will be much shorter and closer together.
Hopefully.
So I have a good friend, Kyle Royer. Him and his father actually make knives. They live not too far away from here. So he was able to bring me some of their knives that they've made and allow me to use them for this video. So I'm super grateful for that. If you've never seen any of Kyle or his dad's Jeff work, you should look up Royer Knives on Instagram. They've got a lot of cool stuff going on. Kyle is a master bladesmith.
Yeah, you guys, these aren't just knives.
No.
These are something different.
Yeah. So we've got these 3 here, which are kind of, I guess, test knives, I guess is what I'm going to call it. They were ones that Jeff has been working on. So Kyle's been making knives for a really, really long time. I feel like probably almost 15 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. And his dad just started recently making knives. So these 3 are ones that we're going to be using on Friday for a tool knife or a chef's knife roll that we're making. And then this guy over here is the one that I'm going to be using today for the saya that I'm working on. So this is just a gorgeous, look at that. So they do Damascus steel, they make their own. And it's just really, really incredible. That's what Kyle is known for, is his really, really pristine Damascus patterns that he produces.
Yeah, and the pictures you guys are seeing don't do these knives justice.
No.
They are exceptional.
Yeah, they are gorgeous. And so these are done by Jeff. These aren't Kyle's knives, but you know, with Kyle's your instructor, you really just can't go wrong. Look at that thing. It's gorgeous.
That's not etched steel. That is Damascus steel.
Yes.
That is something different. Wow.
Yeah. So in any case, so this is, let's see here.
Right.
No, you're good. So this is the back of the saya. I have finished it all except for the top edge. Yesterday, I am doing Stingray inlay. We've had a lot of people request some Stingray examples here. So I'm going to do both the front and the back tip in a little Stingray inlay. And then for the front of it, I'm going to be putting, this piece will also be inlaid with Stingray inset into the front of the sheath here. So I've got a couple little pieces of Stingray that I've cut out. For this one, I am using a sanded Stingray, so it doesn't have that really high pebble like a lot of the Stingray that you see. You can definitely work with that. I find that it's a little bit harder to work with just the regular Stingray with those raised pebbles, because they like to deflect more than the flat ones. So this is the type that I typically try to find if I'm going to be using Stingray in something. It can be a little bit difficult to find the style of Stingray though. Like, we typically don't have it here. Every once in a while we might get one. But for those of you that are familiar with exotics, you can always give Jerry Van Amberg a holler, and he might have what you're looking for laying around. I know here a little while ago, I was making a knife sheath and I needed a like cream ivory colored sanded Stingray was what I was looking for. He had it, and I got it in like a week, which was really awesome. So give him a holler if you're looking for that. Otherwise, we carry just black regular ones. I didn't have an eye. This is the skin that I've been using on for a while. It was a nice big one, and I'd already used the eye elsewhere. But I think for just the panels that I'm doing, this is going to just stand out really nice. It's got a really great shine.
Got great texture too.
Yeah.
Looks nice. Yeah.
So we've got the back piece all done. This is lined. I've got Herman oak for the top and the bottom. I airbrushed. I mixed, I think it was a moccasin brown, and then maybe a chocolate Phoebeans dye together, and then I use a whole lot of reducer to lighten it up, and then I airbrushed to get as close to that handle color as I could. So that's another reason the airbrushing is really nice. is that you can play with that quite a bit and get your mixture good. So, all right. Well, I guess we'll just start going. I have already started. So this is my front panel. Let's start at the beginning. So, getting your knife laid out. This is my pattern, and I have kind of already cut it up into a bunch of pieces because for my inlays, I kind of needed to do that. So if we'll go to the overhead, Tony.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So we've got the knife design. Typically on my welt, I will give myself about 3/8 of an inch here. So it's a little bit hard to see, but I've traced the knife, and then I just took wing dividers and used, like 3/8 of an inch. You can kind of see that line. It's really faint right here. So I traced the blade out, and then put my little end piece back there, and then gave myself a 3/8 inch border. This gives you plenty of room to sand away. I really don't like to go under a minimum of about 1/4 of an inch welt, just because it gets really hard to sew that.
Yeah, plus the purpose of the welt is so that your blade doesn't cut through your stitches.
Exactly.
If you have your stitches too close to that, to the edge of the blade, it's going to cut the stitches still.
Exactly, because I know I've seen it a few times when I first started making knife sheaths. I would get, I try to do as narrow of a welt as possible, and then my stitches would almost kind of be blowing out the inside edge. And so if your blade is just riding on that, you do have a chance to just cut through the leather eventually, and then you'll cut right through that stitching and it'll start to fray. So I like to do a 3/8. That gives me plenty of room to sand down, so I have a good solid 1/4 of an inch minimum to sew through, and that gives me an 1/8 of an inch stitch line from the border, to my stitch line, and then another 1/8 of an inch into the sheath. So once I got that all laid out, I decided with a Saya, you typically don't have like a standard snap closure. Sometimes you don't have a closure at all, just because it's not like you're going to be carrying this on your belt. There's no belt loop or anything like that. But what Jeff is going to do when I get the sheath back to them is they're going to create a little wooden peg that I will put a hole in the front and the back, and so this little wooden peg will go down right behind the back of the blade here, and it will secure the knife into the sheath once they have it. So there'll be a hole that goes through the top. So I've kind of, in my design, I've allowed for that with some little geometric patterning here at the top, that 1/4 inch hole. And then otherwise, I just kind of had some fun and came up with a fun geometric inlay for that sheath. So, okay. So that's how you determine your welts. Size, everything. Okay. So let's see here. So for this inlay, I have taken and used my French edger here, and I have gone to the top, Tony. I have gone around this inside edge, and I have taken the French edger and I have beveled that out so that whenever I put the inlay here, let me stack it up correctly. So when I put my inlay here, it's going to pop really, really nicely and sit flush with the top of the leather, because that's really what you want. You don't want your inlay necessarily to sit down underneath. It looks really nice when you use the plug that you've cut out. And I didn't even, because the Stingray is so thin, if you had something thicker, if you had like a piece of elephant or really something that had some body, you might thin out your plug here, but I just left it full thickness so that it can come right out and be flush, if not a little bit above the surface.
I think it looks good when it's just a hair above it. It gives it more of a puffy, quilted look.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So then I just beveled my edges, I sanded them, I dyed them with my little dye mixture that I have, and so we are ready to put this and this one in. This is a little bit tricky, Denny, because these are lined. But I don't want any sewing to show through my lining, except for on the top, which is the one place that I will allow, because I like to have, the lining sewn to the top edge so that as you use it, these two parts don't come apart.
Right.
Yeah, separate with use. So what we have to do is we need to get our bottom piece sewn in, and then this one, and then we'll glue everything down. So we're going to start there. No questions yet, Tony? Nothing going on?
Someone asked about your bag.
I'm a huge Strange Planet fan. And I recently got that bag. So for those of you that know what Strange Planet is, you'll know what that is. If you don't know what Strange Planet is, you should look it up because it's adorable. This is just the bottom section. I am sanding off the surface so that my glue will adhere.
Yeah, you guys, if you haven't been exposed to contact cement before, if you have a rough surface to spread it onto, it has something to adhere to.
Exactly. It doesn't, if your surface is slick or like this was just a finished piece of leather because I put a finish on it, it's not going to stick to that. It needs to soak in and it absorbs into the fibers and then it sticks to itself. So if you don't have anything for it to absorb into, then it's not going to stick and it's just going to peel off.
Yeah.
So, also, so this is just the end that I cut. I want to allow a little bit of room so that when I put my inlay in there, it's not too long now that I've cut it. So I have already marked out just like a 1/16 of an inch. So just because, once again, my material is so thin, if my material is thicker, I would need to take that into account when I'm cutting off this little tiny bit here. But I'm just going to take off about a 1/16 of an inch, which is the same thing that I have done for this plug as well. So it is now just slightly smaller than the hole that I'm putting it into.
Yeah, it just allows enough for the thickness of your inlaid lead.
Yep. Whatever your inlay is. So we're just gonna trim this off.
It's nice just sitting here watching someone else.
Isn't it nice? I enjoy it. No pressure. You don't have to prepare anything. Although Denny can show you. So on Friday, we're going to be making that tool roll or the knife roll like I was talking about. And Denny has been tooling away for days on this because it's pretty large.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of interruptions too. But,
I'm gonna move some cameras around. We're gonna look at some mine as well. You can go ahead.
Can you do a chrome tanned knife sheath? We don't ever really recommend that.
if you line it with a vegetable tan leather, it's fine.
Yeah. Typically, so with a stainless steel blade, you don't have to necessarily worry about the blade pitting because the stainless won't react to the chrome tan chemicals.
Yeah.
But that's always a risk that you're going to take. And so if you don't know what the steel is that the blade that you're making the sheath for, default to veg tan.
Yeah.
But then also chrome tan doesn't mold. And a lot of times knife sheaths need to be molded slightly. Like this one doesn't because it just goes straight up to the handle and stops. But I don't know, like 75% of your knife sheaths are going to probably be molded, and chrome tan just doesn't do that.
Especially if you do a fold over type knife sheath.
Yeah, or one where you don't have like a finger guard, and so you're making like the handle is going to go all the way down in, and so you need to mold around the handle.
Yeah.
You just don't have that flexibility with chrome tan. It just doesn't do that well, and so vegetable tan leather is really ideal. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down here. So once again, I don't like any stitching as much as I can prevent inside the sheath. So I'm going to be sewing just my Stingray to the front panel of my piece of leather, and then I'll glue everything down and it will be all secured in my final stitch. So we're going to glue this guy.
I only knew that it took Liz to be able to be the one crafting to get her quiet.
Anthony. Anthony and I are getting really close these days with all of these videos that we're doing.
Notice she's calling him by his actual name.
I call her Elizabeth.
Yeah, we full name each other on a regular basis these days.
It's kind of like what mothers do.
Sometimes it feels like that. Anthony. Okay, so that's setting. I'm actually going to go ahead and glue this while we're waiting. And this one I'm going to mark. Make sure you get all your your pebbles where you want them. And then, so I have overcut these, but you want to make sure that you have enough material so that you can go over your plug, under, and then catch it in your 1/8 of an inch seam.
Yeah.
So
You can always trim off the excess
Yep.
after you get it stitched.
but you can't put it back. So don't cut yourself short on your, allow a decent seam allowance. And then I always like to make sure on these plugs that I get glue all the way down to the edge and like the bottom of it. I have beveled the top edge of this plug. That way it has a nice rounded corner for the exotic to go over. But I didn't bevel the back because I just want it to be flush on whatever I'm putting it on. But you want to make sure that you get glue all the way to the edge. So that way when your exotic wraps around, it sticks to it and it makes a really nice shape. There's several people that I see that they will contour these plugs, and you can do all sorts of things underneath. So you can take some of the skivy knives that Denny showed us last week, and you can make like really extreme bevels so that you have almost like stone cut shapes underneath. And that works best when you have a really thin inlay or a really thin exotic that you're working with. Otherwise, something bulky, you're not really going to see that, or something that's shiny is really going to show you that better.
You could also use a real thick piece of leather for your plug and make it look like a cabochon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, what?
we got stuff going on. Denny, you're gonna have to be my eyes.
We're gonna be switching some stuff around
Yeah.
with monitors. So at some point, it will be easier to read if I can ever get your husband to order stuff. He did tell me that he ordered it.
He
so.
ordered it. It's gonna be here Friday. Calm
So-
down.
Well, I am impatient.
Joshua says, I might have to watch this video later. Hurricane Ida got our service messed up and I can't get good enough video quality to see anything. This sucks. I can imagine.
Sorry, Josh.
SUX. And Scott says, I'm surprised the geometric inlay is not a hexagon.
It is a hexagon. It's just not a true.
Not an equilateral.
Exactly.
hexagon.
But it has 6 sides. It's still a hexagon.
Plus, it needs to do that to actually follow the contour of the knife blade.
Yeah. If I just put a straight hexagon in there, it just wouldn't feel right. And honestly, I drew this inlay probably 3 times before I was happy with it. And you can kind of see some of my erase marks here or there. But it started out just as a diamond, just a square on its side. And then I decided to elongate it and pull it down. And so I will stare at an inlay for quite some time until it feels right.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is when you're doing something like this, you have complete artistic license. You can make it whatever shape you feel fits the situation.
Exactly. So we've got with the Damascus steel here, we have some kind of diamondy shapes going on with it, but it felt like a diamond it wasn't large enough for what was happening, and I wanted to make it a little bit bigger.
And the blade itself is sort of a long triangle. There's not a lot of curvature to the blades.
Yeah. You know what I didn't bring in is a bone folder, but I've got this. So after you get your inlay done, and sometimes on Stingray this doesn't work super well just because you've got all those pebbles and they don't always want to lay how you want them, but you want to kind of work down the edge. Now this is going to sit flush. So this, I'm not inlaying this, the end piece here. I'm just going to sew right through that. But this is going to go under. So I want to give it that shape so that when we go under this, it works. But I do need to.
I'm gonna go get you a bone folder.
Okay.
Liz, Eric said after he got his new stamp for the first time, he had to say, hexagon is the bestagon. And then he had a question up there for you, and I told him it's your favorite question.
So we always use contact cement, and there's a lot of different ones that we've been playing with recently. The one that we will typically be using in here is called Van Grip because we just buy it in bulk and then we pour it. Yeah, and you can see already, just because I put the glue all the way down the edge of this plug here so that I can push this inlay to where it's flush with the bottom. You can see, look at that shape. Look at that. I love it. That's going to look so cool. And then Denny's going to give me a bone folder so that I can really work those edges and get the shape to really pop.
Lewis Milliard asked, do Kevin and Becky Hopkins still own this place?
Yes, sir. I think you said a guy's name. Yeah. So Kevin
Lewis
is literally here every day. Becky was here on Monday, which was actually a nice surprise. She comes in every once in a while. They come in on Sundays and make bundles together. It's adorable. Okay, so for this, where this is going to come under and go here, I'm going right here. Sorry, I don't know where I'm at. So where this is going to go there, I am going to French edge underneath this so that my Stingray doesn't make this top edge pucker, but everything lays nice and flush. So I'm just going to take this guy.
So we were taking a look at Denny's tooling that he had going on. You and I both had a plan for knife rolls, and we did not communicate with each other, Liz. So we're going to actually probably make 2 knife rolls. One will not be tooled, and one will be tooled.
Yes. But we can make a practice one tomorrow.
Oh,
The live one will be the tool.
the live one will be the tooled one. We're going to do one for a guy that helped on a different stream that we watch on Twitch. Make something happen on this other stream, so I told him we'd make him a chef knife roll. We're going to make him one, but it's going to end up being off stream, I believe. But we'll show it on the stream and talk about it and how we end up making it work. But you want to talk about what you got going on, Denny?
I think we've got the fanciest knife roll in the history of the world in the works.
Well, this is just the outside cover. And for these knives, we wanted something sort of special and a little bit different. So I've just done it like a Sheridan style scroll pattern, with lots of flowers. It's got, I think, 9 or 10 flowers. Yeah, it's got 10 flowers on it. Got 10 leaves. Whole bunch of folded over leaves and scrolls and swirls and a whole lot of lines to bevel.
Richard Blakes has a question, Denny.
All right.
He says, how do you make a knife roll?
I guess wad it up into a ball.
And push it.
What's the answer?
That was it. Push it. Are you showing us something, Liz?
So I am finishing out this edge. So obviously, once I put this inlay in here and sew it, I won't be able to get to that edge anymore. So this way. So I took a little bit of material here, about halfway, with my French edger there, and now I beveled the top edge. I'm not going to bevel the bottom edge because I want that to be flush. Plus, once I start to burnish it, it'll kind of bevel out on its own. But I'm going to dye this edge, and then we will sew in our inlay.
Nerves of steel right here.
Just gonna get in the little crease.
I've messed up so many projects dyeing the edges.
I know. Put the cap back on this so we don't have any spills.
What, you don't want to get anything on the knives, Liz?
We don't want to get anything on the knives. They've been making fun of me all week because I've been treating these knives like royalty.
I mean,
But they are.
Kyle's probably, and his dad are probably off blacksmithing. But
That's a different thing.
I picked up the case. The knife was in the case, and it was all zipped shut. And she almost bit my head off just because I touched. She's like, "You need to put that down." And then she's like, "You can look at those." And so I opened it up and I grabbed a hold of a handle and she's like, but don't touch it too much. I was like, "Dang, girl."
You guys don't understand. If you have ever been to a knife show, then you'll understand.
I should have brought my cotton
Yeah, your
But
white cotton glove.
My white cotton.
Then you
gloves.
could
And then I would have been okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Maybe.
the point is, that's
It's an art.
a cold steel and just your body fluids will
Your body-
corrode the
Yes.
the blade,
It will
Yes.
tarnish it.
the
Yeah.
metal.
Yeah. So it's yes, carbon steel. It's not stainless. So even just touching the blade, the oils from your hand can affect the steel. It's just a courtesy thing. I'm sure if they're watching, they're kind of laughing at me right now, but then also kind of appreciate it. It's fine. It's all fine. Let's see. Are there any problem-solving suggestions when hand stitching Stingray? I did this knife sheath both ways so that you can kind of see the different techniques. So all of the inlay stuff, I prefer to inlay all of my Stingray because then you never have to sew the Stingray to where it's visible. So that is my preference. But I did the tips of this to where I will have to sew through them and the stitch will be visible on top because it is difficult to always make that look good. Those calcium deposits, those pebbles on the top, they don't like to be sewn through.
People, when you look at it and just handle it, you think, well, I can sew through that. But those little beads are like cartilage.
Mm-hmm.
They're very, very hard. And you can't just stick an awl or needles directly through those. It wants to find the edge in between.
Yeah. I do very much prefer, like, if you have a nice stitching chisel, this will drive through, and I feel like you get a little bit of a better result, using one of the chisels than attempting to do it with an awl.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so if you can inlay it, because then you're just sewing through the top side of the leather, if you allow enough underneath. Doesn't matter what the underneath stitch looks like.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's going to be hidden anyways.
Well, and plus once you go through that leather on top, it sort of makes its own hole.
Yes.
Through the Stingray.
Yeah. So that's my tip. But you can make it look good on top. You just have to be pretty precise. You have to know where you're going. Just go slow. Don't rush it.
Molly said that is a lot of beveling.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
it took me.
on this.
Oh, yeah. It is.
Yes, it's a lot better.
But Denny's a good sport, and he humored me.
At least it's not me making it so crazy this time.
I didn't really realize how big it was going to be.
I didn't either, or I would have said, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
But it's gonna be neat. It's gonna be worthwhile.
Yeah.
All right. Someone wants to know how long both of you, and I don't know, maybe Tony and Liz have been crafting. Maybe you. And
My answer will be quick. I started here in 2018, so I've been leather crafting since 2018.
Liz, how about you?
I have been leather crafting, not really since maybe a little after I started here, which was in 2011. So maybe like 9 years. I started on the bead side, so I did a lot of beading first. And then my leather crafting came later.
I started in the last century. I'm 1964.
Woo-wee. Okay. So I'm going to do both of these stitch lines at once and mark them all out. Make sure that this has good contour.
Yeah, so you've made a few things. Denny has made a few more things than I have.
Tony makes one thing.
I have made other things, but I fell into a niche of doing it. I don't have really time to make anything else. Speaking of knife sheath maker.
Yeah, I don't make anything else.
Okay.
I made a purse once.
You've been sort of acclimated into saddle repair lately.
I know we got to
Tony has
Your daughter
fancy
started-
children.
Since your daughter started riding horses.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got these two inlays, and I'm actually going to trim this up. One thing about Stingray is it's hard to cut it with a knife because that just wants to pop over everywhere. But if you've got a good pair of gingers, they cut just fine. So I don't really like to try to use a knife with Stingray. Just gonna give it a little bit of a trim there so I'm not running into my other inlay, which I'm also going to give a bit of a trim.
I pulled up Kyle's website. They wanted to know what his knives look like.
They are magnificent.
I linked it in the.
Yeah, Liz showed me a video of him and a sword that he had made, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
You guys can't imagine the finish that he puts on this stuff. It looks like a mirror. I mean, it's slick as glass. I've never seen anything like that.
He spends a lot of time sanding.
Well, personally, I don't see how he could sand anything that smooth. I really don't.
It's like 1800, I don't even know what grit, 3200 sandpaper. And you just walk it up for forever.
Oh.
All right. So we're going to do this one. And then, so we've got my, our 4mm chisel set here. So this one is 4mm between the prongs. We've got a 6, a 4, a 2, and a single prong set. They're diamond stitching chisels. So for this, I will be able to drive all the way through my 2 layers that I have here, and I will probably be able to go through the like this thickness with these, but I'm not going to be going too much farther. I might be going slightly into the welt, and then I will finish the stitch with the awl to go through the back of it. I know a lot of people, oh, you know what? I need to glue this a little bit. Probably a good idea. A lot of people ask, they're like, hey, these prongs on the stitching chisel is too short. But honestly, unless you're like making watch bands, they're not made to go through all of the layers. They're made to prick the surface, or you even have the pricking irons, which that's what it is. It's there to prick the surface and give you your stitch line, and then you finish it out with an awl.
If they made a chisel that was long enough to go through very heavy leather, they would be very easily damaged. You could bend them too easily. I mean, I've seen people bend these pretty easy.
Yeah.
I mean, in good quality chisel, you can still bend them or break them if the steel is very hard and brittle.
Yeah. We're gonna put a little bit of glue here. Oh. Hold up. We're gonna sand a little bit. So because the Stingray is so tiny, I'm gonna go right next to my bevel, and I'm just gonna rough up the surface of these.
Do you know what Stingray you grabbed?
Like right
had
here.
some small black ones that Lil Fear was asking about, and he was asking if he could sand it himself. If it wasn't sanded,
No, because
it does that.
It's already a finish.
yeah, when you sand it, you're just going to be sanding the color off of the pebbles. I mean, I guess if you wanted to refinish it, I don't really know how you'd go about that, but if you wanted to refinish it, you could.
But a regular Stingray will still look great. You know, it just doesn't work quite the same as these sanded skins do.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just my preference.
I'm trying to pull up Kyle's website. All right. Thank you, Gary. Show everybody.
Okay.
Just crazy.
It is really incredible.
All right, back to this.
Ooh, that coffee shake. That was a good one. We found a company here in Springfield that hand delivers coffee. So they roast it daily and then they deliver it to your door, and it comes like just tied with the little string, and they hang it on your door. And we got our first order last night.
Really?
Yeah. So I think it's melancholy roasting.
And that's what makes you so shaky.
Well, I guess their caffeine content is on point. But no, I just thought that was really neat that you can get it. There's no packaging, no delivery. Roasted same day that they bring it to you,
That's
which is
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
So we're trying it out. It's so good so far. Good so far. And now we're just, oh, hey, I have a blow dryer.
So Razor Blades in Australia says that he knows Kyle's work. That's how big Kyle is.
Yeah.
He's just down the street.
Kyle actually went to Australia here right when like COVID hit. So he was there in, I think it was like February, and they were actually kind of worried about getting home. But he went there and taught a class.
Wow.
Huh.
So, oh, we're not plugged in. Yeah, if you're into the knife world at all, you will know Kyle. And honestly, he is just like the sweetest guy you will ever meet, and the most humble person for what he makes. Okay. I'm gonna stick this in down.
Nice. Very nice.
Put this one in. I'm actually going to pick this up from the back because it's beveled. It's a little bit hard to push down on it. I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to push it in. You guys see? It's kind of hard.
You act like you've done that once.
Oh, you know.
It's the only thing she makes. She should be good at it.
That's good. That looks good.
Wait. Put my stitch line here.
You think we can move that die?
Yeah. Carefully, we're going to carefully move that die. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So you can kind of see how it bubbles up a little bit right there. And then this sticks out. Woo-wee! Okay.
Very nice.
I'm going to go here now, Anthony. All right. So we're going to start. Let's see here. I actually just want to use my individual one because I want to make the stitch line diamondy. So I don't want this end to be curved. So we're going to start here and then work our way up.
Oh, sorry, I missed it, Devin.
What did you miss?
Question. It's up if you want to read it. Jenny.
All right. Devin says, can someone give me their opinion on Orion Calf Liquid versus wax versus cream dye? I have someone wanting something with alligator, and I considered just buying Cayman and dyeing it. That's really out of my wheelhouse. I don't know much about those dyes.
We have a whole video on it. I do know that.
It really depends on the effect that you're wanting to get, Devin. So that dye, it's a dye system. So the liquid dye is meant for like an overall color, and then you have the paste and the wax, which help you build up different layers of color and different looks. So if you don't follow Orion on Instagram, I would suggest that you do that. Look at some of the accounts that they post, like repost stuff from. There's a lot of people out there using it, and it's a whole system to give you different looks. If you just want one straight color, then the liquid dye is going to give you that. But it's a system of building up and getting different effects. Just like somebody like painting a canvas is getting different effects as they add on layers. So they're not, it depends on what you want to do as to, you know, which product you choose, but it's not, they're not doing the same thing. That makes sense.
And as far as the alligator versus the caiman, you know, both of them come in 100 different colors.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if Devin, I would say if your customer wasn't adamant about having alligator, the caiman would definitely be the most economical way to go. There again, that depends on the size of the project too. You about got that punched.
Yep.
That came out just about perfect.
I think it did. All right. So we've got that one. I'm going to go ahead and do this. And so for my bottom, because I'm going to have a stitch line coming down on either side. And now I did not cut this panel to size yet. You see, I've still got my outline here. I like to leave it until I glue the back on, and then I like to cut everything flush. And so I'm going to come in, usually my stitch line's about 1/8 of an inch, but I am still going to stand off some. So I'll come in maybe like 3/16. And then that's where I put my stitch line. But you know what? I already did this side, so I'm just going to match it to the edge because this one's already assembled. So we just want to make sure we do the same so the front and the back match and all your stitch lines come out together, because that's what you want. That's where I want to end.
Wayne asked, is Stingray tough on sewing machine?
The sewing machine will work the same as hand stitching if you try to go through the Stingray itself. But an inlaid Stingray works quite well on a sewing machine. But you know, you'll still have problems with it if you go through the Stingray itself.
Yeah. Yeah, anytime you're doing a top stitch on a Stingray, it may or may not come out great.
Yeah. Yeah, your needle will obviously find the path of least resistance, which is going to be in between those little beads instead of right on your line.
There we go. Okay. So we got
every once in a while you can get lucky.
Got one of Andrew's famed bobbins here that he likes to hand wind. This is some of our 1mm rhino thread. I don't know what color. I just picked the color that kind of accented, you know, the blade and the color of the sheath. Let's see here. That should be fun. Ah, thank you. Now you guys get to watch me hand sew.
Are you going to put it in your...
I am. Are you ready?
Marcus Workshop says, what do you guys think about an appropriate inlay leather for a barbecue knife sheath. Hair on cow? Question mark. Any ideas? Question.
I like the hair on the cat.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't
get
like about
barbecue
hair on,
sauce on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and food, let's not have it.
You know, the same rules would apply. You know, if you're gonna make an appropriate type sheet to use a vegetable tan leather, at least for the interior, the lining.
Yeah.
And hair on cow is chrome tanned, so you definitely want to line it with something if you use that.
Pretty good. Okay, here we go.
Cool. Look at that. Look at the mannequin head. You must have moved after I set that camera.
Oh. Oh, I did move the pony under the,
Wait,
Abigail.
I'm here.
He was asking if Abigail was here because she was being quiet. It's not like her. But you got a nice yellow shirt on today.
yeah, it's nice and bright, isn't it?
I put an order in for
Did you do that? Chris
Um,
was not thrilled about the idea of yellow shirts. Apparently he thinks that it's a weird color.
Yellow SLC shirt.
that's good. He's
Yeah.
not allowed to wear one then.
But I was like, no, I just bought a yellow shirt. It should, I was like, I'm down. I'm ready for some yellow. I never wear company shirts anyways though, so I'm
Rusty liked it and I showed it to Lindsay and Lindsay's like, are we getting those? And I was like, I don't know. Are you saying I can?
So anyways, yellow shirts on the horizon, guys. Springfield leather, yellow shirts.
It'll be cool.
It's gonna be great.
Navy ink print.
I like the way you tuck the end of your stitching pony underneath your granite.
Well, I don't have a
pretty
chair
smart.
to sit on it with, so that's how Tony gets it done. And I figured,
give
hey,
him the idea.
that's a pretty good idea. I thought about bringing your horse in here,
Yeah.
but I didn't really know where we'd put it.
Look at all this extra room I made in here. Could
We
have
have
put it in
been,
place of a sewing machine. It would still be a sewing machine.
that's true.
Liz brand.
You know, depending on the knife that you're making a sheath for. For me, like doing fold over production ones, yes, use a sewing machine. But my goodness, when I've got a knife like this in front of me, I'm not going to machine sew that.
Make it handmade.
Exactly. I just prefer.
Carrie Schwartz would be so proud of you.
Good. It's, my life goal to make Carrie Schwartz proud.
Razor Blades is adding Kyle Roy your knives on YouTube. I think we'll see if we can get Kyle in here.
Very nice.
Once you
I did message him this morning and I let him know when we would be on and all the different platforms. So he could be silently watching, or he could be making a knife. Cause that's his job.
It's what he does.
That's what he does. He does have video tutorials too, so if you're interested in getting started bladesmithing, he does tutorials about, doing the Damascus, and he's got, I think it's a Master Smith program that you can purchase, and it's really incredible. Wah! Does anybody else just like hand sewing? I just like hand sewing.
Stacy.
I do. I enjoy hand.
Yeah. Almost halfway there.
Most people, what they hate about hand sewing is they probably used the wrong size needle and wrong size thread for the chisel or awl or whatever hole that they're
It makes
making.
it hard.
Yeah, it makes it hard for them to pull it through, but you aren't having any problem at all.
No. And once I did bring my pliers, once I get everything together, it will be decently thick. And so sometimes I do, need pliers for that last little bit to pull it through. But whenever you're doing your inlays and stuff, usually that chisel punches really nicely. You get all the way through and you don't need any help. There is this one lady that I follow, and she's got those little finger grippers that you can put on, and I need to get some of those because that would probably make it easier and just quicker, and maybe I wouldn't need the pliers. But I'm too lazy to buy it, so.
So I scrolled back up. Kyle is in here. He said, "Don't scratch Dad's knives."
Yes.
She has been very protective of them. You don't have to worry.
I found
Well,
it
she
purely.
doesn't like it when I even look at them.
No.
Yeah, I had a hard enough time holding on to the pouch that they were in, all zipped up. I got yelled at for that. So. I think he knows how protective you are.
I hope so.
Cindy wants to know that maybe we could do a video on making moccasins.
That is towards the end of the year's list.
Yeah, it's on the list.
But in the meantime, if you'd like to buy a pattern, we sell several of those, and you could read through it and give it a try, and then you'd be prepared for a video.
Split Beam Terry says, "Is there a chart for size of needle to awl, to thread, to thickness?"
There is for sewing machine. Is there one for hand sewing?
No, most of your hand sewing thread, like this thread you're using right now, I would
I have the small needles because
I would use the size aught. I call it an aught. Some people call it an O
Or a zero.
or a
I
zero.
like aught. It sounds fancy.
yeah, you got single lot, double lot, triple lot. It's just fun to say.
Yeah, if you use a little heavier thread than that, I would use a double aught. If you're using a thread like, say the artificial sinew and you wanted to double it, I would use the triple aught. You know, that's the largest harness needle that we sell that I've
That's
ever
big.
seen.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that someone could probably forge a huge needle. But Kyle, you can make big needles. Yeah.
The back
Yeah,
end of that Stingray going to miss the knife blade. Little fear, I'm going to line this. So this is the inside of the front layer, but so this is the back panel that I already did. So you've got your Stingray here. It's fully lined. There's nothing showing. There's nothing here. So that's going to be the same once I'm done with this. And I definitely prefer to line almost all of my sheaths are lined.
If you're making something that you want to be finished, you know, and really be premium type, you know, I would always line it.
Yeah. So sometimes you can line it with like we've got our new veg tan lambskin, so you can do like a rolled top edge with a lambskin lining if you wanted to. But for this, I'm just using a piece of about 2.5 ounce Herman Oak veg.
Dean asks, "Are money belts on the list?" October the 8th.
You guys and your money belts.
You're gonna have to put
Dean,
it with.
can I borrow some of that money so you don't have so much to carry around?
Can't fit it in my wallet. Can't fit it in my pockets. I need to put it in my belt.
You know, all these dates we're giving you, they can change at any time, but that's our projected time to do all this stuff.
Andrea asks, "Whatever happened to the rucksack pattern for the bag Clayton made?"
We had it available for limited download for that weekend. If you are looking for it, we are happy. Just reach out. We can print it out for you.
The reason we just did a limited release on it is because we wanted to see how the pattern worked and get suggestions back from you, because it needs to be
finished. There's no physical paper instructions on any of that, and there might even be some altercations that need to be made. So there we go.
That looks great. Now, how are you going to finish that stick?
probably alterations.
Alterations. I'm actually, because it is going to be completely lined, I'm only going to pull my top thread through to the back, and then I'm just going to cut it off. And that's it. So I ended my thread down at the bottom where I started. I just pulled my top thread down through the back. I'm going to cut those two off, and I'm going to melt it
You
Why didn't I get a lighter?
like
That's
on your
what I forgot.
points there, Liz, did you do to make it symmetrical? Did you do the other like around the corner? I have one right here.
Yeah, so I started at the bottom. I went up this way until I was pretty much at the top, and then I started back at this bottom, and I went up so that I could make everything match here. So I didn't go all the way around in one go.
Can I touch this?
Yes, you can. touch
Okay,
that.
just not the knife that goes.
Mhm.
I was just thinking to make it symmetrical. What if you went that one? So then these two are both double stitched.
Okay,
I could wrap
can I
it around.
interject?
Of course.
Since you're going to be lined, you could just tie a knot. You wouldn't
Oh.
have to backstitch either way. You
Mhm.
could tie a knot on the backside and
Yeah.
line over that knot.
Yeah.
And glue it down.
But I did want to get my thread off the top. So there'd have to be one backstitch somewhere.
Oh, true.
Well, I guess you could have
Yeah,
like
there
an
was-
open, I wouldn't want an open stitch in the back though. All right, Tony.
Sorry.
We're gonna, I'll
Well,
thread this
you
one
would be
through.
I
tying
was
a
just
knot.
asking.
It wouldn't be an open stitch.
You would be tying in a knot,
over.
yeah.
Dean says there'll be a small charge for his money.
Small charge for your money. That's kind of a loan shark deal, Dean.
Okay, we're just gonna call it. But that's not gonna go anywhere.
Like,
No thanks.
Bebop in here.
Hi, Angela. Is our sign not on?
Oh.
All right.
pardon me.
A boot bag.
Hello, have you all considered doing a boot bag? And the answer to that is no, we haven't considered it, but
Oh, we are gonna do a bowling ball bag. So I'm excited
yeah, we're
about
going to
that.
do a bowling ball bag. You could sort of alter it. Fold your boots and put them in the bowling ball bag. I don't see any good looking ones these days, just cheaper fabric.
I have a cheap pattern. Well, my daughter.
Now, which part are you getting ready to stitch?
I gotta stitch my
Oh.
tip on.
That end cap.
Mm-hmm.
Lil Fair says, I got my stitching pony last week. Why does everyone have leather at the top of theirs?
Because the wood is harder than the leather. The leather is generally about the same density as what you're stitching, and it won't mark your project as
Do you
bad.
just contact cement it on?
That's what I did on mine. Mine's an old cavalry type stitching horse, and it just had wooden jaws on it. The cavalry didn't care if they marked their leather a little bit, I guess. But especially if you put a piece of leather that has any moisture in it inside those jaws, the wood will mark it.
Cad
Pretty
has
severely.
redeemed a Denny burn.
All right.
Give us a moment there, sir.
I just got to talk more, and then it just kind of naturally comes. Matt's Toaster said he does like how you were kicking back, looking like you finally get a day off.
Denny's first day working this week, okay, guys?
Yeah.
Denny comes in on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Yeah. I'm okay.
Uh,
Plus, I just enjoy watching other people do stuff.
That's what happens when you give people raises. They just start kicking back and sloughing off.
Yeah. Well, once I got up to $4 an hour, I figured
well, I tried.
I've got
That's
it
what Dean
made.
said. Dean says, now that you got your raise. Give him a steak.
All right.
Oh, Liz, I didn't tell you I made you into an emo on Twitch.
Oh, thanks, Tony. Sarcasm. Thanks, Tony.
It's you. Well, you're looking down a little bit. You're looking in your coffee cup, smiling and with your Bruins shirt on. I think from last week's video.
Okay. So here we've got. There we are.
Here,
This is so
let me do that
awkward.
for you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so got this end sewn in. We've got our inlay sewn in. So now it is time to glue the back down.
Looks good.
Well, thanks. So we are going to trim up this because I don't want this in the seam. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to trim it up really close to my stitch line there.
Yeah, I waited till she got to this point. You guys notice how I refrained from telling her to use a French edger to do that.
Would you want to dig your French leather through the...
French edger would do it perfectly.
Well, let's see what you got here, Denny. Now that there's nothing left for you to grab onto.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't even think about the French edger. Look at that.
But you can get right up to it, and you can do it on a bevel too, so there's not a lump.
We don't want
But I wasn't trying to get you to redo it.
Well,
I said, notice how I refrained.
but then you did it anyway, so now I'm going to struggle to get through, and I'm probably going to stab myself. There we go. Honestly, I'm just going to do it on the
That
side.
Stingray is hard to cut, no matter what
Yeah.
tool you're using.
Yeah. I'm not going to worry about the top
Yeah.
and the bottom too much, but on these sides, I want to make sure that I'm definitely not in my stitch line.
Yeah.
So, or so.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll do it down here too. Let's see what we can do. Denny.
Always so helpful.
Is it?
Hey,
You know what?
I'm
it's
in
not-
here. I had to do something.
Hi.
Who's that?
Some friends. I don't know.
Friends of Springfield Leather.
Some friends of Springfield Leather.
Darcy's giving him a tour.
That's good enough. All right. Okay. So now I've got this piece. It is already traced out. So now we are just going to be gluing that down.
All right.
We're getting there.
All right, I have a note for you here.
A note.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle says, hey, Liz, you're making my knives look awesome. Thanks for sharing. Picking up a lot of info.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm glad you like it.
That was actually Jeff that said it.
Oh,
Ah,
I see that.
Jeff slash dad. That's into the same person.
Yes, Jeff is dead.
Jeff equals dad.
Thanks for watching.
in Little Fear. I guess that's how you say that.
Yep.
I'm so interested in this build. I got my dad's K-bar from Vietnam that has no sheath. I want to make one for it. That's
Nice. Well, you'll have to show us when you get it done.
And Matt's Toaster says, I see Liz isn't casting her stitch. I don't always either, though. By casting, I mean doing the loop around the second needle in the stitch.
Oh.
I never do that. You aren't helping yourself any. You're making a lump there under your stitch line when you do that.
Well, I think maybe he means like flipping the needle around and poking it back through the lace to hold it on. I don't know.
Well, I've seen some people that they'll like twist it around.
Yeah, but you aren't.
Did you just?
The deal is, when people are doing that, I believe they're trying to imitate a lock stitch like a sewing machine. But this regular saddle stitch is so much stronger than that anyway, because you're stitching all the way through on both sides. The lock stitch, you only stitch halfway through. If you wear or break one side of the stitch, that whole line of stitches
It's done.
is Well, it's in jeopardy anyway.
Yeah, I've seen that every now and again, but you never taught me to do that, so I've never done that.
Well, because I was taught just like I told you just now.
Exactly.
And
we're pretty happy with it.
I'm not saying what you're doing is bad, Matt. All I'm saying is I don't see the advantage to it myself.
We should ask Carrie Schwartz. One of these days, we're going to get him.
Carrie needs to come see us again.
And he does.
Hey, Liz, have you ever done a sheath for a machete?
No, I haven't.
Denny?
I did. My wife.
Ooh.
She uses it in her garden.
I was going to say,
She has bamboo. She has a bamboo patch in the backyard,
Oh, bless your heart.
and she jungle chops it all the time.
Yep. I do. I have a machete just for that purpose.
Yeah.
And I also jungle chop it all the time. We're getting a quote on having it removed. Don't ever plant bamboo, guys.
Unless you really love it.
Or unless you
And
want to
your
pour
neighbors.
concrete first. Yeah. If you hate your neighbors, then you can plant some bamboo. You can't stop it. It's the bane of my existence at home. I have bamboo that's taller than my 2-story house. That I can't control. My husband will go back to the backyard and he'll weed whack the leaves off of one side, and I just have like a solid wall of bamboo that's been weed whacked off of one side. Oh, guys.
If you can get it down to the ground and just keep mowing over it and don't let it get ahead of you, it's controllable.
And then round up. Yeah. If you just kill it, it's fine.
The problem is it grows like 1 inch to 2 inches a day, so you're mowing every day.
Yeah. In a week, it's 1.5 feet tall.
Yeah, so you got to jungle chop again.
Yeah, one of the guys that came out to like quote removing all of this bamboo from our backyard, he said you chop it all down and you just spray it with Roundup. So every time you see those new shoots, you spray it with Roundup. And he's like, you just keep doing that after it's chopped down. He's like, eventually, but it has to have leaves so it can soak into the roots.
Yeah.
So you have to wait for the low stalks to
Roundup
bloom.
is a post-emergent killer.
Yeah.
It's already got to be growing.
Yeah.
Can't be in the ground.
So that's our next year of life is going to be watching these bamboo patches.
My stepson says burn it. When it comes back in, burn it again.
Yeah, well, I
And
live
when
in
it
the
comes
city.
back in, burn it again.
Cheaper.
Buy lots of propane.
I would. I have some pretty sweet bonfires, but I live in the city and they don't allow.
You can, if it's contained. You have it in a fire pit.
As long as it's
I have
it's
bamboo
flame,
taller than my home.
the flames can't be over 3 feet high. I think that's the rule.
Not going to be contained.
Yeah,
You're against the law.
I can't see over the top of the house.
There you go.
Yeah. Wayne said you should make a tiki hut.
I don't have room in my secret garden for anything. We're working on it.
Andrea says, ask if you could send her some stocks. Of your
You
bamboo.
can come get them
I don't
before they're
have
all
any
gone.
mail. Wrap them in wet paper towels.
Taller than my house. Just going to keep saying
You know what? You can take after you jungle chop them.
Yeah.
If you load them in a truck or a trailer, you can take them to the zoo and they will feed them to
the animals.
the elephants and the whatever else is
Denny?
bamboo.
Have you seen my vehicle?
Tie them to the top.
I have.
I have a Honda Fit. That is the one thing that will not fit.
And bamboo will not
It
fit.
will not fit.
Oh, tie it on top.
Just borrow Kevin's truck. That's what I do for everything else. I'm just like, Kevin, I need your truck. And I take it. All right. So here we go. Got all my glue, contact cement, dried-ish. So we're going to line these guys up. Really just need to make sure I get all my glue patches here. Everything's good. Push it all down. I didn't bring in a roller, so I'm just going to do this by hand, but it's fine.
Looking good. Yeah, that works just as good as a roller. I never use it. And you say, well, you never do a lot of things.
That's what I was about to say. But it's supposed to be Denny burning somebody, not somebody burning Denny. Master Toaster did say I'm feeling the Denny burn today.
All right.
All right. Okay, so it's lined, backside's completely clean, everything's super nice. And that's, yeah, if you're doing inlays like this, you really need to line it. Otherwise your inside is gonna look really raggedy and it just is gonna catch that knife every time it goes in.
Yeah,
So
your knife will
yeah, if you're doing inlays at all, you're gonna need to line it. So that's just that's how it's gonna go. All right, so now we are going to trim to size. So I've got my back on there. I'm gonna trim this up, and then my front and my back panel should match. That should be the plan. I cut them out of the same pattern. Hopefully that's how it happens.
Well, they'll match. Plus, after you stitch them, then or glue them, then you can make them match.
Exactly. I've got that 1/16 of an inch there to sand out. Gonna be great. Gonna cut on this one. And I bet Denny would love to do this with a head knife.
Oh yeah, I'm itching right now.
Something else you didn't bring in here, Liz, was a head knife for Denny.
I know. I should have made you cut out all my parts.
That camera too big.
Well, then my day off would be ruined.
Together we can get that shot in the camera. How come you're making so many passes on it instead of just cutting it all in one fail swoop?
Because I have more control like that.
I was asking a question I already knew the answer to, but I thought it would be helpful information to give.
Nice clean cut. Yeah, I always just cut it in passes. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's the way
I do too.
Then he cuts it in one fell swoop with his head knife.
I could cut it in one fell swoop with the head knife, but then I'd have to craft it all over again.
Hey, everybody has their own way of doing things.
There's a way to do it, and then there's the right way, or the Denny way.
No.
And honestly, if you would have saw me cut out this inlay, so I start cutting from one end and I go this way, and then I turn it around and I get that corner from the other way, and I dig all the way through because I don't want to tear those out. I don't want to like have it to where there's still a little bit of fibers connected at the bottom, and then you tear it out, because then cutting out those tiny little fibers is terrible. So I come in at both directions on that corner, and I make sure that I clip all the way to the bottom of that corner from both sides.
Yeah, and if I cut it with a head knife or a round knife, I would have to do the same thing with a straight knife.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've got that part all there, and then for this, actually, I am going to trim off. And I'm going to cut this with my scissors, because once again, Stingray. And I'm not super worried about having this really precise, because once I put it all together, I'm going to sand it anyways. So I just want to get it close.
You just don't want to make it too small.
Exactly. There we go.
Very good. It looks good to me.
There we go. Trash. Really, I could clip this little end here. All right, so now we have a front and a back. I need to do this top edge and then cut my welt, and then we will start going. So we've got, this is a little bit longer here, but because I need to trim it up, this back piece is trimmed up more. But it's coming right along. And before I start assembling everything, I need to make sure that I punch this hole, which I'm going to mark right now, and then try to not forget, because once it's together, I'm not going to be able to punch the hole. Why don't I just do that now so I don't forget? You want to make sure that these
Now the hole doesn't go. Does it go through both pieces?
It sure does. Yep, all the way through both pieces. And then they'll make a plug that stops right at the back, and then the top will have a little handle so that you, or a little
Oh, so you
Like
just pull the plug in and out? Huh.
Yep. Got that. Honestly, I'm gonna punch this one and then line up my two pieces.
There you go.
Because I actually want to punch this. Wow. Nope, not quite. There's that. I'm going to finish and line up this edge first. Okay.
I'm waiting for the next question. What size edge are you using?
So when I bevel the top of the inside of my knife sheath, I don't bevel all the way out because my welt is going to come out to here and I want all of that to be flat. If you bevel it, you're going to have like this little tuck in where your welt sits. And I don't want that. So, and actually, I'm going to finish all this edge when it's together. That's what I'm not going to finish it now. I'm going to sew it though. You could see me in the teeny tiny one. Making these chef sheets, would it be okay to line with them suede? If your suede is veg tan, that's really what it's coming back to. Is you want to use veg tan on a knife sheath, whatever is touching the blade.
Yeah, whatever's against the metal needs to be vegetable tan leather.
Yeah. So you can find a suede that's veg tan.
Do we have a pig suede, a veg tan pig suede?
No, we just have the pigskin lining that's a veg tan, but it's not suede. We don't carry it. Herman Oak has started to do a waterproof suede, just like the Heritage that we carry. It's the same colors. It's still really expensive because even though it's suede, they're having to do way more processing on it than just their regular veg tan. So it's not a cheap leather. But you can do that. Otherwise, I honestly don't know about any suede wedges that are out there. Okay, so I've got that all sanded down to where I'm happy with it. I'm going to do my stitch. Oh, we're going to do more stitching.
We have a split veg bundle.
Yeah, you could do it with veg, but at that point, if you're going to use a veg split, I almost feel like you might as well just not line it.
Yeah.
And then you just want to make sure that your stitches, where you start and stop, line up on the front and the back. Because whenever you go to sew it all together, you want to make sure that those lines, sometimes I will sew into those lines starting and sew all the way down, or I want them inset slightly from my actual stitch line. So depending on the look that you're going for, you can either inset your top edge stitching, or you can have it to where that is where your stitch starts and you use those holes and you go all the way down. So I've done it both ways.
Yeah, you want it to look like that stitch line just goes all the way around.
Yeah.
It's continuous.
And sometimes what I'll even do is I will line these up and I will poke an awl hole through.
Yeah.
And then that way I know where I'm starting and stopping. But then it's on the inside, and that can be a little bit awkward. But I guess ideally you would sew the front panel first and then poke through, because then you could do your stitch line from the inside, because then it will look the same as the back. But like I've got here, I did this one on this side, so this is going to be my top stitch, and then this stitch line isn't going to look quite the same because it's the back stitch.
Right.
but
Yeah, there's
Like,
a trade-off.
yeah.
There's always got to be a trade-off.
yeah. So you want to make sure, especially when you've got all this contour, that everything is lining up correctly up here so that your front and your back match. And then this, Tony, you don't have a shot on this knife anymore, do you?
Nope. I can set.
Okay. Flip this over.
You go ahead and just set it down there.
So that is going to fit right there, right up against that handle. This hole is falling right behind the blade so that when they put that peg in there, it will sit and this knife is not going to move in the sheath. So you can see you can't see it there. But that should be pretty perfect. And then that contour matches with the handle. So it's just slide right up. Gonna be great. All right. So now we're gonna mark our stitches. Not too long. For me, what I found is that making a knife sheath, just a lot of planning and making sure that you get all of the steps that you need to get.
Yeah, but people should exercise the planning deal on about every project they do.
That is true.
But it's hard to plan for everything. There's always something you don't take into account. Hopefully every time you do something like that, you learn. Oh, I should have thought of that.
And I ended right where that last hole needed to be. Scooch that back up.
What ounce veg leather are you using?
So for my front piece, I think I had it at 6 to 7 ounce is what I had. The guy split it at, and then the back piece is about a 2.5. So my liner. So overall, right at 10 ounces, I think is where I was gauging yesterday. For the front, so the front is 10 ounce, the back is 10 ounce, and then I will have like an 8 to 9 ounce welt probably. So a decent amount here.
The other question was belt loop, question mark, but I feel like these knives are probably not knives that you carry around.
Right. So because it's a saya and not your standard knife sheath, I'm not putting a belt loop on them. I will typically put my belt loop on before I assemble, so that way it is also hidden between my two layers.
You would put it on before you even glued your lining on.
Exactly. And I like to do, I feel like I've done one before. I like to do a straight belt loop. I don't like to do the loops, just in general. And then if I am doing some sort of exotic, I will do like a rolled edge inlaid belt loop with whatever my exotic is in the middle of it. And then I just punch 2 slots. I sew them in at the top and the bottom. And it's just kind of a fun accent. Nobody's ever going to see it, especially if you wear it on your belt, but it's just fun. So.
Well, it's another selling point, you know.
Yeah.
It's completely finished instead of partially finished.
Exactly. I know one thing, and I feel like I talked about this with Kyle back when I started making knife sheaths. We would look at a knife sheath, and the front was always so fancy and tooled and had all this stuff going on, and then the back was always so plain. And so that was kind of my, idea there is when I started making knife sheaths, I wanted to make the whole sheath something exciting that you wanted to look at and not just have this fun front and then a plain back. So, and I was assembling some of this yesterday, and I did that whole back yesterday while I was here at work, and I didn't have my little stamp. So unfortunately this doesn't have my little lizard on it somewhere, but Always remember your maker's mark, which I have a hard time remembering
Me too.
to do. But, so sorry, Jeff. It's not going to have my little lizard on it. You can put your stamp on it and we'll just pretend. That's okay.
You can stamp your lizard on. Well, no, you can't because you don't have it with you.
Yeah, it's at home. I know I thought about just trying to put it on there last night, but you know what? At some point, I just didn't want to mess it up, so I didn't try.
Hopefully I'm not missing people's questions. They're talking amongst themselves at the moment.
Always leaving us out of the conversation over here.
Razor Blades did say that no knife is too big to wear on a belt for an Australian.
Yeah, look at Crocodile Dundee. Remember his huge. It was like a bowie
Somebody
knife.
pulled out a knife and they're like,
Yeah.
"You call that a knife?
This is not-
This is a knife."
That is a good moment of television.
When should you have put your stamp on it?
Before I dyed it and finished it, that would be ideal. So after I cut my pieces out, and that would be anytime, that would be, when you'd want to do any tooling that you're going to do is before you dye and finish something. So your stamp falls into there. Usually, actually, so the back I have this little inlaid, but that would be typically where I put my stamp, is kind of down here. Just because it is a lizard, so it's kind of got a wide top and then it narrows down to this little tail, so it always fits really nicely in like the end of a knife sheath.
Except when you put Stingray down there.
Except for when I put Stingray down there. Okay. So back through on this one. And that's all I'm going to do to backstitch, because really that's probably going to be a lot in the welt. So it shouldn't come out. Got that done. What was my scissors? That'd be right in front of me. All right, so now it is time to punch this other hole. So we are going to line these guys up. And I'm going to punch this hole from the front, from the center, so from the back to the front of the back.
Yeah, the
Because-
finish side of the
Yeah, the finish of the back, because when the peg goes through, if I were to punch it from the top side, I'm going to have the back side of that hole, which isn't going to want to allow that peg to go through really smoothly. So the back side of the hole is still going to be on the back side. Well, I might actually go through both ways to have that bevel on both sides, because otherwise it's just that lip is going to catch on the hole.
Plus, there's when the side you end up on, drive your punch through from one side, the side that it ends up on has always got a real sharp, kind of a ragged edge.
Yeah. So that's where we're going
Dean
to
has a
put.
funny question
Does he?
here that pertains to the beginning part of the video. He asked Denny, "Are your hands cold?"
Okay, there's another burn, huh? No, I'm just trying to figure out something to do with it.
So we get started here. Liz is like, "Can you turn the air on? It's so hot in here."
It is hot in
So
here,
the
guys.
air is cranked.
Everybody on that side of the room has like their flannels and their jackets on, but it's hot on this side of the room.
Yeah.
That air conditioner unit is on the wrong side. There we go. So that peg should just go right through that hole. So I've got a 1/4 inch hole right here coming out the back. And when I stitch those, that will be the most important thing to be lining up.
Yeah.
To make sure that,
When you glue them together, you just stick something like that through them to make sure they're,
make sure everything's, I guess I could find a smaller hole punch that has a 1/4 inch shank on it.
or a pencil, maybe.
Yeah, there we go. So we will make sure that those line up real good. All right, so now is the welt. So I've got a piece of leather right here. And I did not pre-cut my welt because I forgot about it last night. But what I'm going to do, so this is oversized on the bottom, but this is true to size up here. So we are going to trace out our shape. And then I'm actually... And I always struggled when I first started making cheese. I always struggled with my welt. I would cut it exact, and then it would want to be on the inside of whatever I was doing, and then I have to sand down more than I wanted. So now I always oversize my welt. I glue it together, and then I'll either trim it or I'll just sand it down until I get there, because that part pulls the most in, maybe like it wants to pull in when you're sewing it. And so then you'll get like this divot in your edge that you have to sand out, and you really want that to be the fattest part of your edge is where the welt is, and then you want to bevel around and have it come around. So
My rule of thumb is everything except for the very top finished piece should be oversized.
yeah, and that's a good one. Let's see here. So we're just gonna come down. Okay.
What did you say, about 3/8 is what you...
I've got about 3/8, but I'm actually going to use the knife. Jeff, close your eyes. So that... Oop, that's the back. Ah, definitely close your eyes. What am I doing?
Much safer with a knife than you were throwing stuff in it.
What is it? There we go.
Yeah, that's... You got it.
Oh. Did I trace it backwards? Hold tight. And we're just going to go off this. Why is this backwards in my head, Denny?
That's what you got.
Because it's what I've got. I mean, it's fine. Oh.
So are you going to glue the welt to your finished side, your top side, or your back side?
I like to glue it to the top finish side. And then I do my stitch line. And then I glue everything together. All right. Here we go. So we've got 3/8. 3/8. And then, okay.
Dean had a question up there, did he?
Can you inlay bamboo?
Listen here, Dean.
Is that a trick question, or is that for real? I don't know. I've never tried it, but I would say you probably can. It'd be hard to stitch through without splitting it.
Maybe I have the knife upside down. That makes more sense. There we go. So I've got our knife on here, and that welt line will land right along the edge of that blade. I actually should probably make it a little bit. Because this is where it's going to come down. Okay. There we go. All right. So we're going to cut this out.
Let's make a boat out of lizard bamboo.
What?
Let's make a boat out of lizard bamboo.
Probably almost have enough that you could do that.
Use some of that seam sealer stuff, but
Listen, last year with everything that happened, we worked so much that I didn't have time to maintain my yard because I was literally at this store for like 3 months straight. So it just turned into the jungle that it is right now. And now we have to fix it. Okay. So I'm also going to oversize this back end cut because I want to make sure that that's flush wherever I glue it down. And then we'll just cut to size when we get there.
Gary says, great work, Liz and Denny. We haven't hooked. Speaking of hooks, did you do any fishing?
I did not. This weekend, I did not.
I went floating this weekend.
You did?
Yeah, I went kayaking for the first time.
All right.
In your life?
Yeah, I mean I've been canoeing a lot, but I've never kayaked.
What do
So
you think of that?
it was fun. I had a good time.
Kayak, you can just paddle wherever you want to. You don't have to go wherever that guy behind you.
That is true. That is true. He did flip, so I was glad to be in my.
He flipped?
He did. There was this really like strong part of the current, and there was this tree across this branch that was like in the water. It was hard to see. You could see the ends of it sticking out, but then the branch was kind of hard to see coming under. And man, it just pulled him right in, and he flipped. It wasn't extreme, and he was fine. But yeah, at that point, I had gotten turned around in the current right before that, and had kind of like made it up on shore and got pulled into a little, gravel bar or whatever. But he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna totally make this." He didn't make it.
He did.
Not too many people did make it. It was a tight one.
Basically, it says, such a waste of leather. Could have used 2 strips of scrap as my inner type wad. I said, for as much as you probably get for this sheet, it's going to be okay. Or that you could
This
get.
is the pro bono sheath.
Well, that you could, that you would
Exactly.
normally charge for.
Well, and a lot of times I will. Like I'll buy, if you can get them heavy enough, I will buy some splits here. But sometimes it's hard to get it heavy enough, or I'll have to build up.
It depends on what you're doing.
Yeah. This knife is not very thick. It's a chef's knife, so it doesn't have a super hefty blade. But my goodness, sometimes you can get into like some buoys or something, and they've got quite the spine on them. All right, so we're doing the front, which is this side, this way. All right. What time is it?
Oh, you've only been going for like an hour and 40 minutes.
So in any case, at this point, you're going to glue it up with the welt. We might just call this, and then I'll start hand sewing, and then on Friday, I'll show you guys the finished thing.
We can lay that sheath out there the next night.
Like that. That's kind of,
There you go.
there we go. So I'm going to glue the welt in to my front piece. I will draw my stitch line. I will go through and actually punch my stitches through the front half and and as far down into the welt as I can get with my stitching chisel. And then I will glue the back side on, and then I will start hand sewing. And then I finish the edges, and then it'll be done. So I'm going to do that knot here because I've taken up a lot of your guys' time already.
But you did a fine job.
But I think I'm going to keep going on Twitch, just, because that's what Tony likes to do. So if you want to watch me start hand sewing this, I probably will not finish it this afternoon, but I will get it started. So you can hang out for that if you wanted to jump over to the Twitcher.
The Twitcher. See you guys Friday.
Okay, bye.